Bojita?
Okay, Bojita, my name is Jocelyn, and he's my colleague Lindsay. I'm from China, New Oriental, and I'm not sure whether our audience know New Oriental or not. We're the largest and leading private educational services in China, and last year we've trained 5 million students.
Wow,
Yeah,
that's
and
a huge number.
yeah, and also we have 30,000 teachers of all subjects, and then we have 17,000 teachers, EOT teachers. So for me, I'm the director of teacher development, and it's really a tough job. That's why we have Lindsay and some of her colleagues in the UK. For the past few years, we've collaborated in many projects. So Lindsay could share some more about the projects and introduce herself.
Yeah, so I'm actually based here in the UK. I always describe myself as a teacher, trainer and materials writer. I was at Bell for 12 years, recently gone freelance. Through Bell originally I was working with New Oriental, doing some teacher training, so actually training new trainers, wasn't it, to try and help those trainers to develop the teachers.
Yeah.
And also on a quality assurance project where myself and Jim Scrivener, we came and we observed about 50 classes in 5 different cities, sort of looking at the state of education there now and making suggestions about, you know, development for the future. And so I was really excited when I was invited to work on this particular research project which we've been presenting here at IATEFL. So I've been working with Jocelyn on that in the last few months.
So your talk was yesterday?
Yeah.
Is that right? So can you tell us more about that project and what you talked yesterday?
Yeah.
Yeah, basically we're talking about using student observers on research attitudes to teaching. So in New Oriental we have many students, and New Oriental teachers, especially our Chinese teacher, we're using more traditional way, a lecture way to teach our students, and we view this as very practical and also very effective. But a few years ago we have our Salter Center in China, and also we have courses with Lindsay, and now we have a different concept of viewing ELT classroom. And also in China, a communicative approach was introduced 30 years ago. And there's a tendency some teachers want to use communicative approach and abandon the Chinese traditional way. And sometimes it did fail in many, many classrooms. But the thing is, Chinese traditional way might not be the future. So that's why we kind of combined two things together and asked Lindsay to do more research with us, and then we've kind of find a solution. So Lindsay, maybe you can share with us our results of
the results
research.
of the research.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, so
Nice.
you know, because with development, you know, it's very difficult. Maybe we should explain the traditional approach really first for those not familiar with China. I mean, it really is lecture. It's all in Chinese, lots and lots of information, quite fast.
Yeah, and also it's all in Chinese, almost.
With the occasional English word that just suddenly comes out of nowhere, which is quite interesting. And the learners just sit and take notes.
Yeah.
And we're talking primarily exam preparation classes, which is what the majority of learners want, isn't it? They're taking domestic tests or international exams. And sometimes when we're trying to persuade teachers who still lecture to move towards a more, we're not saying you need to be doing sort of UK style ELT lessons, but to become a bit more communicative, they will say, my students will complain, they won't like it. And we wanted to know, will they really complain? So we had 8 student observers, we did 2 cycles, we had them observe 3 different lessons, each teaching the same set of phrasal verbs, but each one took a different approach. So it was the traditional approach, a typical ELT approach, and then, as Jocelyn was saying, the 50-50 approach, which brought the two together. So it was, you know, language taught in context, practice in English, but the explanation of the grammar of the language was given in Chinese. So we're trying to sort of marry those two things together. And the results were that generally the students preferred the 50-50 approach, the observers.
Combination of
Yeah,
two.
they do. They also appreciated the ELT.
Yeah.
But we also learned, didn't we, that the lessons that they thought were most useful were not necessarily the same as the ones they thought were enjoyable.
Yeah.
And one observer chose the traditional as the most useful, but also said it was the least enjoyable. So we discovered in China, I discovered in China that...
Yeah, because sometimes in China we don't see learning as something enjoyable. We kind of believe the more we suffer, the more we learn. You also have that proverb in English.
Well, we have no pain, no gain, but somehow the suffering
Yeah.
sounds much more dramatic, I think.
Yeah, and also when we show the video clip, the audience, some of them are asking, do you think this is an English lesson? And they because it's all in Chinese, and then we heard some English words. But at the end of the day, if we go 50 and 50, and then we can marry the two together, especially we can implement some SALTUS methodology, ELT methodology. I think it's very effective and useful. And then there's a trend that we use in global standards to meet our local needs. And gradually, maybe next year, we can see it's not 50 and 50, maybe 70 and 30 we'll see.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's taking a step-by-step
Yeah.
approach, isn't it? But we certainly learnt that the student observers felt that the traditional approach had their benefits, especially to explaining language in L1, avoiding the miscommunication, being able to clarify things very quickly. That for them was important. It's the way they've learned, and we can't really, I don't think we should do away with that at all. But they also gave some really useful suggestions for the teacher in each of the lessons on how they could improve, and it was things like, monitor more closely, actually pay attention to what the learners are doing. I mean, as a teacher, that is so valuable, isn't it? If you're,
of course. Yes.
but they also recognise that when they're in class, they don't necessarily notice those things about the learning process because they're so busy taking notes. But and so they found that actually sitting back and watching as observers, they said they found it really useful. They understood more about the learning process, they felt they learnt more critically, and they also said that they appreciated the teacher's job more.
That's really nice.
Yeah.
That's really nice. So do you plan a follow-up to this project? Like to see, in some time, to see results of this match of traditional and more modern way of teaching?
I think so, because this time we don't have a large sample. So obviously when we come back to China, we'll invite more student observers and also have more classes to be observed. And then hopefully that we can come back to IATEFL to share with you some of new findings.
I think it's a very long-term project,
Yes,
isn't it? We're
exactly.
kind of, at the moment we're exploring what's happening now. That will impact on the development, and over time we can then start to measure the impact of that development on the learning. And I think that, so we're here for the long haul, aren't we?
Yeah, and also I think Lindsay's job is very meaningful because really what we did make impact to our students. And also we don't believe which method would be the best one. We think anything that student would like would be the best thing that we're pursuing here.
That they like and that they feel is useful and that we can see is useful as well, isn't it? Yeah, absolutely.
So the last question, are you enjoying IATEFL?
Yes, very much. I've been in IATEFL, this is actually my third year. The first time I was in Birmingham, and last year I was in Glasgow, and last year I had a talk with Jim Scrivener, and this time I had a talk with Lindsay. So from these 3 years, I've heard a lot of interesting talks, and also know a lot of people who can influence me and also let me know more about the ELT world in the UK for the rest of the world. So I think it's a very, very good event to attend, so I'll keep coming.
Is there anything else you would like to share with us?
No, I mean, I just, I always enjoy IATEFL, and it's, for me, it's like the only time where you have a long stretch of time where you could just sit and think for a really long time and really focus on kind of you and your ideas about teaching and learning without other distractions, and I think that's what I really appreciate the most.
Thank you so much for being with us today, and good luck with your project.
Thanks very much.
Thank you very much.